Frank here with Einar of Wardruna. I've been very fortunate enough to see Wardruna live in Europe before, and it's a magical experience. Why is now the time to bring it to America on a tour for the first time?
I don't know, things fell into place, and of course it's not easy for a band to be able to come over here. There's a lot of paperwork and that stuff. We've sort of done a couple of single shows here before, but we really felt that it's about time to come over here and do a proper tour, and it's the first time we're on the East Coast, and we have a big following here, so feels really good to finally come over.
Wardruna is a band that's very deeply rooted in Norse culture and history. At what point in your life did you feel that immediate connection to it that would ultimately change your life forever?
I don't know, I think I've had that since I was a small child. I've always been very... I've had people in my family, in my close family, who have been... they knew their saga material. So I would always be told these stories, and when we were out walking. History became a living thing, and I guess it created some images and stuff like that stuck. It's a very different way of thinking and different way of viewing the world than what we do in Western society. It's a way of viewing the world that is very natural and more human friendly than a lot of these monotheistic ethnocentric religions such as Christianity, for instance, which is has this underlying thing where one's own belief and faith is superior to others, and you don't find that way of thinking in these old pagan ways, and we need more of that.
I actually wondered if maybe it had to do with, like, this is your way of preserving the culture and the artifacts, in a way that others aren't.
When I started working with Wardruna in like 2002, 2003, when I started to sort of started recording, started digging into the material, learning about these instruments. There were not many people who did it or knew anything about it, and also in terms of the musical part, I really wanted to hear this music where these old themes and also instruments were sort of represented and also interpreted on their own premises rather than pushed into a different setting. For instance, metal music use a lot of the imagery and mythology and lyric-wise from the Old Norse, but I really wanted to use relevant instrumentation and language and sounds. I don't know, I just could see it and hear it, and so I guess I've been chasing that vision ever since, and I guess I still am.
So this date, the discography consists of the trilogy pertaining to the runes. Why the runes? Like, why was that what your focus was immediately that would go on to be over a decade of work for you?
That's a good question. Because when I started, I have to say that there were a lot of different ideas where to start, and also along the way I've had there's a lot of things I want to do with Wardruna, but I don't know, I find that the runes are images of various aspects of the old ways, and that's man's relationship to nature and to each other and to something bigger than yourself, whether or not that's a spiritual thing or a philosophical thing, or it is this universal theme that transcends age or culture or social background or gender. It's timeless. And since these old traditions are born out of nature, a nature we still surround us with, it makes it still relevant. And that's been important for me the whole time. That for me it's not about romanticizing about the past or trying to make Viking music or Bronze Age music, or it's about taking some old ideas and some old tools and create something new. It's been quite a journey for me as well and I've learned a lot. The first Wardruna record was the first one I ever recorded.
Like first record ever that you did?
Yeah, the first time I ever recorded any music was that album. So I did everything. It's been a very much do-it-yourself kind of project. Like even the instrumentation, like you couldn't get a hold of these instruments, many of them. There were maybe a handful of people who could make them or knew anything about them, and so I was sort of bound to either make it myself or have somebody else make it for me.
Does that scare you going out on tour, thinking they might break or something like that? You know?
Yeah, of course they're irreplaceable, but you know, it's stuff. So on the other hand, it's just stuff.
Well, let's talk about how you got into those instruments. I mean, like, what was the process like learning each one that you either found or created?
I came across a lot of stuff I've never seen or heard about, but I just instantly knew that I had to have, I have to find out more, and I have to have this in my project. And I made a promise to myself that I would not hear other music being played on them before I was able to do it myself, because I really wanted to approach it like a child, like to try and find the instrument's own voice before sort of putting all of these filters on top of it or squeezing it into some direction. So it's been a lot of work, and I guess it still is. I feel like
the journey's not done yet.
No, for sure not. Yeah. And yeah.
You're a very meticulous person when it comes to the recording and the sounds and the atmosphere it creates. How much of that goes into the live setting as well? Because I've seen the live show and it's absolutely mesmerizing. You know, there's no corners really cut, and I just wondered, what did it take to do something like that?
No, I guess trial and error, but yeah, I am somewhat of a control freak in terms of how I want things to sound and how I want this to come across and to how I want it to be experienced in. So we put a lot of work into it, and the most important thing is when you do music like this, the fact that it's very personal. For me, I don't differentiate between myself and my work, so every time I go on stage it's like serving my heart on a platter to everyone who is there, so it becomes a very vulnerable thing. And yeah, it's all or nothing, basically.
As a fan of Wardruna for a long time, I don't watch a whole lot of TV, but I was watching Vikings, and then out of nowhere, I didn't know that you were going to be on the show, but it just popped up that you're there, and of course that's actually flourished into a really great relationship between you and the TV show.
Yeah.
How did that all come about in the first place?
Well, I was contacted by production there. I think it was one of the directors, Ken Girotti, who came across Wardruna's music and really wanted it on the show. So I was contacted a bit before the premiere of the first season, a couple of months before that, because they wanted to license some of the music. And I don't know, they were really happy how it worked. They felt it added a quality that they were looking for. So before they started like the music production for season 2, they asked me if I wanted to join Trevor Morris, who is the main composer of the soundtrack, to sort of join him and yeah, co-compose some stuff, and I still do a lot of stuff directly for production, with like if you see any of the actors sing, or if there are religious songs, everything from battle cries to drunken songs to yeah, I sort of find appropriate Norse poetry and stuff like that, and create some songs for them.
That's amazing. I think you really are like legitimizing the TV show in a way. You know what I mean? Like,
well, it's I don't know. It's been a very fun thing to be part of, and also I feel it when they're sort of portraying my old culture. It feels good to be a part of shaping it at least a little bit. You have to remember also that even in Norway, people are a little bit afraid of being proud of our history, and there are several reasons for that. One of them being it's a time that's for several reasons been sort of forced into this stereotypical yeah, when your history is, what you learn about your history comes from mostly from British and German Christian monks from the medieval times. It doesn't necessarily create a very nuanced image of the time and the people. So that's slowly breaking up. But also the fact that the whole Nazi misuse of parts of our tradition, which is still a very touchy subject in Norway, and people are very scared of being proud of that part of our history. So they kind of ruined it for us. So we're slowly taking back, and the massive interest that the TV show is creating is actually helping us moving past that fear, because yeah, the interest for it internationally is sort of so intense that we sort of are being forced to be proud of it again in a way.
Of course, the end of the trilogy does not mark the end of Wardruna by any means. I know that you have a lot to do, and of course you have like your own solo work coming out as well, which also includes the songs that you create for the show.
Yeah.
Snake Pit Poetry is the latest that's out.
Yeah.
How do you go into deciding what goes into the show / your solo work, and what goes into Wardruna?
I don't necessarily decide it, because yeah, like Snake Pit Poetry, that's a piece that basically the creator of Vikings, Michael Hurst, he asked me if I would want to write this sort of lament for Ragnar, the main character in the show, for a special scene where he's thrown into a pit of snakes. And so I did that and took some poetry from one of the greatest poems from his stories. So it's basically giving itself its shape in a way. So I just go with the flow, I guess.
If you haven't seen Wardruna live yet, make sure you check it out. It is an amazing experience.